I think most everybody has been in here before, and the two other bread classes were wonderful, but they were kind of easy. This is the one that has all of the hard stuff in it, okay? It's transferable to any other kind of bread you want to make, but this is a generic white bread dough, okay? We have a sandwich that we make at the restaurant called a Cuban, and it comes on a bun that looks like this, okay? That's a Cuban bun, and this recipe also makes nice little baby rolls. It just does a lot of stuff. So what we're going to start with today is I put this dough in at, I guess, about 4 o'clock, and I thought, oh, I'm stuck it in the refrigerator. I thought it's going to last for a while. No, it has risen, and it wants to be worked with, okay? So this is going to be a backwards class. We're going to start at the end. We're going to form this dough into whatever shapes you want your bread to be, okay? And each of you get a little baby pan to take home with you. It's yours to keep forever and ever. This is a quarter-size sheet pan, okay? Donna's nodding, Tom's nodding. No. We cook at the restaurant on, I didn't bring my full, yes I did. We cook at the restaurant on full-size sheet pans and, half-size sheet pans, because that's how big our ovens are, our oven is. And this is, you can see that this one's twice as big. Okay, a full-size sheet pan is twice that big this way, okay? So anyway, we're going to fill this one up today. Y'all can make whatever kind of shape you want. I am going to portion you out some bread dough of this, okay? We're going to let it sit in front of you for about 5 minutes. You're going to kind of push it down a little bit. We're just going to let it sit and rest for about 5 minutes, and then we're going to form it, okay? Then we're going back and learn how to make the dough. So that's what I say. It's kind of backwards. It's kind of backwards tonight. But start to finish, this bread takes about 4 hours. So I knew that we didn't have time to do the whole 9 yards. So you will be cooking at home tonight dough that I made. And you will be taking home dough to either make tonight if you feel like being a night owl, or stick it in the refrigerator and play with it tomorrow if you feel like you'd rather postpone the enjoyable experience. Okay. This dough was done in a we have it's not one of those huge mixers. This is about its capacity. This is 4 recipes worth, and that's about its capacity, and that's about all we need for up there for where we are right now. But what we're going to do tonight is learn how to form dough, and we're also going to learn how to portion. I have scales. We may have to move you. Oh, I got 3 scales. Maybe not. Maybe not. Okay. I am going to dump this out onto this board. I love my bread board. If you get to where you're making bread a lot, I love my bread board. It came from a restaurant supply store in New Orleans. I don't know where in the world around here you get them, but if you're close to a big city and you go to a restaurant supply store, it's not a cutting board, it's not thick, it's just a bread board. And it's nice to work on. Okay. Let's see, John, can I pass out the recipes?
No, they're still on the printer.
They will be here as soon as John gets the recipes. But the recipe makes, your recipe that you'll be making tonight makes 41, John, 41 ounces. This is a 4-time recipe, so I'm going to divide it up into 41 ounce sections and give it to each of you, but first I'm going to throw a little bit of flour in front of you. I'm wearing gloves because I'm doing it for y'all. At home, I love to work with dough with my hands, but of course we can't at the restaurant. You know, you have to wear gloves all the time at the restaurant, but I just love the way it feels. I just like to get into it and work with it. And pretty good, 37. If not, he'll be back. 41. Okay, we're just going to let it sit there for just a minute.
Lisa, do I need some flour?
You do. You do. Y'all, this is a different kind of flour, too. Y'all know the last 2 times we've used bread flour. This is all-purpose flour, and it is also available at Sam's. It's like the same price as the others, $10 a bag or something like that, very reasonable. But it's different. It's this dough, my husband loves this bread. It's so soft, and when it's hot, you just want butter all over it. This is his favorite dough, and this, we used to say that you could have any kind of sandwich you wanted on Cuban bread at our restaurant. We quit that because I couldn't keep up with it. So it's a very popular dough, I will tell you. Now, let's see how good I was. Yep. Yep. I know.
Serious.
Okay.
Ooh, that's pretty.
It is pretty, isn't it? And it feels good. These are wonderful little containers, and you can buy them smaller at the restaurant supply over in Clinton, Capitol. Y'all have heard me talk about it before. But when I put the dough in there, it was at 4.
Wow.
So it's real easy if you have a marked one to tell when it's, I've heard Alton Brown say before that he uses rubber bands, great big rubber bands. He puts the rubber bands on, and then when it gets to the point, he knows. But I love the ones that already have the markings. Okay, while we're letting it sit there for just a minute, let me show y'all some options you have. If you have a half-size sheet pan at home, and once you switch to these kind of pans, the half-size sheet pan, you will throw the rest of yours away. You just, every cookie sheet I used to have, I no longer have. I have half-sheet pans at my house, and that's what I use for everything. And a quarter sheet pan, is nice too. We talked about those for pizzas last time. When we make Cuban buns, we make 8 on a half-size sheet pan, and they're shaped like this. This is how the bread looks, okay? These are 6-ounce breads, okay? If you decide you don't want something that big, if you want to go down to 3-ounce, and you could put all this on the same side, that's 3 ounces on there.
Measure it after it rises. We always measure the ingredients to put in it, but I never measure it before.
Well, and we had to because the bread has to be consistent at the restaurant. So, and it's always nice to know what a recipe does. When John brings you the recipe back, this right here will make a loaf of bread. And we use I don't know if I brought my loaf pans with me last time. Y'all's loaf pans that we made were smaller, okay? I looked at mine. Mine's a 10-inch loaf pan. The bottom of it says 10 inches. I think that means it's 10 inches long. But this bread, what you've got is 41 ounces. And I make my bread at the restaurant in that 10-inch pan 41 ounces. Is that right? 16 through 32? It's almost 2 pounds. It's an ounce short of 2 pounds. So that's not right. It's 31. So you've got 41. You've got about 10 ounces extra here. You could probably get a smaller pan and make 2 of them. We're always making something else. And it works perfectly for Cubans. Okay, but these are 3-ounce rolls. Now you might think, I would like to make hamburger buns, and I want them just a little bit bigger than that, but I don't want them that big. These are 3, that's 6, try 5, try 4, okay? These are cute little dinner rolls, okay? They are 1.5 ounces. So as long as you make your dough close enough together that it touches each other, they're going to puff up and rise. If you want something that's going to spread out, just don't let it touch the other things. Okay, I'm going to...
Mix like that, or do you make sure that everything you put on the sheet pan is of equal size to cook evenly?
I mixed these.
You do mix?
Yes, Yeah. I don't, and really if you look at from this size to this size and you consider how flat they are, that's not a whole lot of difference. I wouldn't cook, focaccia and something that's, expected to get done. But these all cooked, and it will take longer in your oven at home, but in our convection at the restaurant, we can cook 4 half sheets in 12 minutes.
Oh, wow.
I know, isn't that not incredible? You get spoiled rotten. You think, oh, can't do this at home. It takes 20 minutes, Okay, I have got 3 scales here. I'm gonna pass them, I'm gonna section them out, and I've got 3 of these. These things are called, wonder if John took those too. Oh, here they are, yay. Okay, these are called dough dockers, I think. No, they're not called dough dockers. I think they're called dough cutters. Dockers have the little holes in them, like you dock pizza, it makes little holes in it. These are dough cutters. They cost like $2 or something like that. They're wonderful for chopping your dough up. Okay, I'm gonna pass y'all out some dough dockers to share. I'm gonna put some down here for y'all. There's one for you. The one that I was using is a little dirty, I apologize. The scale that I was using is a little dirty, I apologize. It's seasoned. These scales are, I don't remember what we paid, like $150 scales. I mean, they're really nice scales. This is my one that I use at home, and it came from Kitchen Collection or Bed Bath & Beyond or something like that, and it works fine too, The thing I love about these is the batteries are rechargeable, which is great at the restaurant. I mean, at home it's overkill. I'm not sure I'm spending $150 for a big old... What's that?
You're doomed if you don't use a scale.
No, and once you start getting accustomed to the feel of it, I mean, that first thing I knew that, and you work a lot with fractions, like, okay, I'm dividing this into, what I'll do a lot of times is I say, okay, I'm making Cubans. Cubans are, like I told y'all, 8 to a pan, so I'll start with my dough and I'll say, okay, Cubans are 6 ounces, I'm making 4, I need 24 ounces. So I will measure out 24 ounces of dough, okay? Then I cut that in half and half, because I can pretty much, once it's 24, I can guess 6 and 6. And I usually do measure a couple of them. And once I get the feel, sometimes I'll quit. But if you divide it into fourths, by the time you measured at the most 3, the one's measured. So, okay, I'm going to let y'all kind of decide what y'all want to do with your dough. Do you want big? Do you want little? When you start, the first thing you'll need to do is cut some off and start forming it. And to form the dough, what you're going to do is, and I'm going to come around and help everybody individually because it's kind of hard to explain big up here. But what you're doing is you're chopping off whatever size it is you want. And then you are taking that dough and you are stretching it around and pulling the raw edges under. I'm gonna grab yours. It's been sitting the longest. Okay, I got a piece of dough here. You see how that's nice and smooth? Okay, so I'm gonna pull this under, and this under, and this under, and this under, and this under, make a little dumpling-y thing, okay? And this is nice smooth dough. Y'all shouldn't have any trouble with that. But that's what you want your dough to look like, because it's got to have that skin to rise. If you've got holes in your skin, it's like a balloon. The air is going to leak out. So I'm going to bring pans around for everybody. I'm going to let y'all start working. Measure a couple of them, decide what sizes you want, and I have you a sample of all 3 of these to take home. So you will know that when you get home, you'll think, oh, I don't remember how big 1.5 ounces was. I have you samples to take home. And I would, I wouldn't handle it a whole lot. You know, it's kind of like biscuits almost. If you handle it too much at this point, it may turn tough on you. That one's okay. And Stacy said, do I press it out? The answer is no, not yet. Okay? Just put it on there, and if you put it in your pan, y'all saw that the Cubans were kind of oblong. What we do with the Cubans is we put them on there in a ball, we wait a few minutes, and then we stretch them. If you put it in there and try to stretch it now, it's just going to go back together. Yeah, but if you let it rest in that pan for a few minutes, it'll stretch beautifully, just beautifully. Yeah. Yeah. This is Fleshman's. This is the kind of yeast we've been using for everything in here that we've been cooking. You can get this 2-pack at Sam's for like $5. It's like worth the drive to Sam's. It's not, well, as soon as you clip it, it's like coffee. It puffs. It's not cake. No, it's just vacuum packed in there really good. It is. It is. Now there's 2 kinds, or there's more than that, but this is instant dry, okay? And we've used instant dry for everything in here, okay? Another kind that they have in the store is active dry. And we use active dry at the restaurant just because we always have and we're used to using that. Active dry takes another step. When you put the yeast in the water, if you're using active, you have to proof the yeast. You have to make sure it's still alive. So you start off by putting the yeast in the water and you wait till it foams, and then you keep on with your recipe from that. Instant dry, you don't have to do that. You can mix the yeast in with y'all's little bags that we're about to do. The yeast and the salt and the sugar and the flour is all in this bag. You can't do that with active yeast. With active dry yeast, if you get it close to the salt before it's had time to start working, it makes the yeast quit. So instant is easy. Okay, instant dry yeast is easy. Active is not bad if you're used to working with it. I like it. I'm used to working with it, but if I had known about this beforehand, I'm not sure I would be working with active yeast, but and it also does quick. It's faster than active yeast. Okay, if y'all look at your recipe, we're gonna go over it, and then I'm gonna give y'all your stuff, and we'll start on the messy part. What you're going to do with your recipe when you get home is, we have already done this first part for you. Mix 4 cups of flour with the other dry ingredients in a mixing bowl. And so I have your already dry ingredients all measured out for you like we did last time. They're ready for me to bring them to y'all. We're going to add the warm water and the oil, and then you're going to stir that until combined. If you have a KitchenAid at home with the dough hook or whatever kind you have, now's the time that you turn the mixer on, turn the dough, put the dough hook on and make it start going, and add the rest of that flour. You divided your flour up into 4 cups and 1 1/3 cups, and I will tell you, this is the first time getting ready for this class that I ever measured this flour. My recipe did not have a measurement in it. It always came out to be exactly within a few ounces. Because once you get it done, you can tell with your mixer or with your hands when you've got enough flour in there. And I could always tell it's got enough flour in there, and I was dead on, you got 3 pans of Cubans, that's how many I'm supposed to have, But this is the first time I measured it, but I did measure the flour. I will say that flour makes a difference in things like the humidity in the air and things like that. So once you start you've worked with the dough. You know what that dough's supposed to feel like. If you find out that your dough that you made, when you get to the point that you're ready to form it and it's too sticky, it needs some more flour. Okay, and we're going to be hand kneading tonight, so you're going to be putting flour into that dough. One thing you don't want to do is get too much dough in there, too much flour in there, because it'll make it tough. It's not the kneading that's going to make it tough, it's the flour, okay, at this point. Okay, so when you get if you're using your mixer, you are watching for the dough leaving the sides of the bowl, and with my mixer, actually, my KitchenAid at home and our big Hobart up at the restaurant, what mine does, and I'm sure everybody's does this, when it gets to be about the right, it starts making ears out the bottom. That's what I always tell the cooks. It starts making ears. That's when it's done. It's a glob. And then when you've got it perfect, it starts making ears. I don't know how else to describe it. It just comes up like a trident sword or something. It's coming up on the sides, and that's when it's done. Okay, if you're mixing it by hand, I have read several things that say it's just impossible to overmix a dough. But I don't know that that's true. I know I've never had one overmixed, but especially kneading by hand, you just cannot overmix it. It takes about, on a mixer, it takes about 8 minutes, 6 to 8 minutes, depending on your mixer. And like I said, watch for those ears. If you're kneading it by hand, you will start noticing that it's not as sticky, you know, and you'll know the feel. I mean, you felt it once, so you kind of know the feel. After you finish kneading it, no matter how you're kneading it, you're going to allow it to double in size. And what we're going to do tonight is, after you finish kneading it, we're going to put it back into the Ziploc bag that your flour came out of, and you can take it home, okay? At this point, you can put it in the refrigerator, but you don't need to leave it in that Ziploc bag. Put it in something that's big enough for it to, because it will rise. Yes, it will rise. So put it in something, and then you can play with it tomorrow. If you want to take it home, if you think it's risen doubled in size, you can form it tonight. Then you can also stick the formed dough in the refrigerator and bring it to room temperature the next morning. It will rise in either way. It will rise overnight in the refrigerator.
So metal pans versus plastic, does it matter?
No, I don't think so. John said, John was doing all the recipe work for me. He said, now you're supposed to take it out of that pan and let it rise in something else, right? And I said, well, but, at the restaurant and at home, I let mine rise in my dough bowl. Yeah. I know you're not supposed to do that, but it rises fine, and it's one less thing to wash. Exactly. I've never had one not rise. What I think the thought behind that is there's no friction there. It's a clean bowl, you've sprayed it, there's no friction, so it's going to rise better. But it rises just fine for me in my metal mixing bowls, and that's, like I said, one less thing to wash. Okay, you know about forming it because we've done that. At home, when I'm cooking the dough, the bread, it takes about 375 for 30 to 40 minutes. Sometimes it does take that long. I think everybody's oven just kind of, but you're going to know what it's supposed to look like, okay? And 375 is the right temperature. The number of minutes will vary with your oven, okay? And how big, if, like Donna said, if you've got a whole tray of little bitty baby ones, it's probably going to take a little bit less time than if you've got a whole tray of great big Cubans. As soon as that bread gets done, and this is true for any of the breads we've had in here, as soon as it gets done, you got to turn it out of that pan. If you don't get it out of that pan, as soon as it's done, the bottom's going to get soggy because it's steamy on there. It's hot on the bottom, And so you want to get it out of the pan just as quickly as possible. You want to get it on a rack, if possible. If you've got a cake rack, or our oven at home, our stove at home has a thing in the middle where you can grill stuff, So you can dump it on there, or something that has air. Is good. If you can get it on something that has air in it, you want it to,
So even if you cook it on like parchment paper, we like to cook everything on parchment paper, it makes it easier to clean. If you cook it on parchment paper, you still need to peel it off of the parchment paper to let the air get all the way around.
yes, you definitely do. And did I show y'all?
We do that, we normally just slide the parchment paper off.
And these are, oh my gosh. They are not $1 or $2. I will tell you, these little babies are expensive. These are incredible. Now, they have these, I think, maybe out at Kitchen Collection. You ordered these online, didn't you? And I want to say they're $15 or $20 each.
They're worth it, though.
They are. But I will warn you, they are not cheap, okay? Yes. Oh, my gosh, we use these every single day. And we've had these for a year or more, hadn't we? Shelley, my sister, does all the sweets, at our restaurant. And Shelley gave me her used up ones. She said, I'm getting new ones, you can have these. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is just wonderful because you don't have to spray the pan. And it comes off easy. But this is, the generic name is, the first one that ever was called a seal pat. And so people still call them seal pats, but I think they're, I don't know, it's not patented or, I don't know. Anyway, you can get knockoffs now, they work fine. Okay, let's see. Down at the bottom, you've got your directions for, oh, and we didn't go over how to form this into if you wanted to make loaf bread out of this, if you wanted to make a loaf, sandwich loaf. You remember we were talking about the cinnamon buns? Okay, that's how you're going to do if you're putting it into a loaf pan. You're gonna press it out into a rectangle, okay? And then you're gonna roll it up, okay? And then you're gonna kind of turn the sides under just a little bit to get it in your pan. And it will be beautiful sandwich bread then. If you don't do the roll, you know, that first bread we made, you didn't do the roll, you just dumped it in there. If you don't do the roll on this one, it doesn't have that nice sandwich quality that you're looking for, like you slice it and it's pretty. It looks like a big fat roll instead of a slice of sandwich bread. So you do need to do that roll thing. Okay, y'all, I'm gonna bring, what's that? The seam goes down, yeah. When you pinch it under the sides and the seam goes down. Yes, okay, I'm gonna pass out your gook. Start mixing. Okay.
Okay.
Stacy, I think I'm gonna run out again on you. I'll give you your one and I'm gonna come back and get you your other.
Do I need to help you?
I think I'm finished now. I guess you could go around and dump them some more flour out. Okay. Start stirring.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I appreciate you. You've been so very nice.
Oh, it's been so much fun. Okay,
I'll take this cup.
okay,
I'll add about a cup of water. And flour in all the little piles.
good. That's good. Okay, so this is our dough right here. We're going to take it and we're going to bring it over, okay? Push with your palms of your hands. Quarter turn, pull it over, palm of your hand. Quarter turn. Well, the pile's kind of irrelevant. You can even do it without flour, but, you know, quarter of a turn, quarter
So
of a
at this point,
turn.
you're not adding the flour, you're just kneading the dough.
You're kneading the dough, but it'll absorb some more flour. It still needs another cup of flour, so it's going to get flour as you're kneading.
Okay.
But the less you add, the better. You know, don't just keep adding it. It needs what's that?
How long do you do
10 minutes. CPR, be prepared, 10 minutes. Now, it may get done before that, we'll see. He did. Oh, that's good too. You don't have to, y'all's is nice and soft, that's good. Yeah. At the restaurant, I think our convection oven probably is more efficient than a home convection one, you know? But we cook this bread at 325 at the restaurant. But at home, I do 375. Okay, John says John's the timekeeper over here. He says y'all have been at it about 10 minutes. I think yours feels great. Great. John can tell. Perfect, perfect, perfect. I'm checking it just feels a certain way, like the softness without being sticky, kind of spongy.
So if we're happy, leave it alone?
If you're happy, leave it alone. Yep. If you're not happy and you're tired, leave it alone.
This is what I like about making bread, though, this right here.
I know, it is. It is nice, isn't it? Okay, y'all just put your bread back in there. When you get home, put it in something that you can kind of judge it's rising, or stick it in the refrigerator. You know, then when it has risen twice, or when you get ready to work with it again, pull it out, get it back to room temperature. If you have put it in the refrigerator, get it back to room temperature. Then you can treat it just like before. Once you get it formed, if you don't want to wait for it to rise that second time again, you can put it back in the refrigerator. Use your bread cloth. You know, your bread cloth is important.
How long is the second rise?
Usually quicker than the first rise, usually. So if the first rise, when I make this, and this may be a little bit faster with this yeast, when I use the active dry at the restaurant, this is a 4-hour process. I can start at 8 and have bread by noon. The first rise is probably an hour and a half, and the second rise is probably an hour, and then the 30 minutes is the time because I have to go through that process of proofing the yeast. So it really may be a 3-hour bread. Y'all may work with it, and with this yeast, it may be a 3-hour bread. But unless it's a weekend, I don't know, your schedule may be different than mine. Unless it's a weekend, I usually don't have 3 hours to make bread. And we used to, the way we used to do it at the restaurant was when we made our white bread with this recipe is somebody would start it at night. Whoever was cooking at night would make the dough and leave it in the refrigerator, and then whoever came in the morning would make the bread. So I think we just about got this one. By the time you get home and turn on the oven and get the oven hot, it ought to be ready to go in. They're small enough that you can have some with butter without ruining. You know how I told you with the bread, the first bread we made, it's kind of, do not cut this. It's going to fall apart if you cut it. Let it cool, you know, no matter how much you want to put butter on it. But these are neat because you can just pull you one out, eat one, or eat 2 or 3, and you still have some left over. So, okay. You should be able to. You should be able to do that. You should be able to put a little Parmesan cheese on them if you want to. You ought to be able to put a little, I don't think that you kind of want to watch it with the cheese and maybe even cheddar cheese. You may want it to cook a little while and then pull it out. If you spray water on any bread, it will make it brown. It'll have a brown, make it brown better. Now, this bread to me I've got y'all's little packages somewhere. This bread to me did fine in our oven at the restaurant without any water on it. But if you've got a bread, I made bread at home that just wouldn't get brown. It's like, that stuff just not getting brown, and it's done. And so you spray water on it, it'll turn brown.
Spray it like the beginning or while it's cooking?
Well, I usually spray it when I decide it's not turning brown, and I'm not, you know.
You can't spray it while it's
You can, and yeah, it's not going to hurt you to spray it at the very beginning. A lot of bread recipes say to put water bath in the bottom of, you know. Yeah, we usually don't have time to do that, but ours usually turns brown. We usually don't have any trouble getting ours brown at the restaurant. At home I do, and I have sprayed it with water before. That recipe that we did the first time, the original recipe that I got from my neighbor, where that recipe came from, she did butter halfway through. She cooked it for half the time, and then she put butter on it and cooked it for the other half. So, okay, I think your bread's happy now. When I started working with it, it had bigger holes in it, you know. See how nice and smooth that is. And now that one has gotten, and this one, I don't know if you can tell inside the paper of plastic or not, but it's looser than it was. Can you tell that it's looser than when you put it in there? Mm-hmm. That's because it's starting to rise. It's looser than it was. It's starting to rise already. So, okay, y'all.
So how long do we put that in the refrigerator when we get home?
Put it in the refrigerator in something else. And you know, you've worked at it so long, you know how big it was when you started. By the time you get home, it will be a little bit bigger. If it does get all the way big and falls, it's not the end of the world. Okay, it will rise again from the ashes.
Wait till tomorrow to.
Yeah, as long as you put it in the refrigerator. But y'all saw what happened to this. I put it in the refrigerator and it rose another, I don't know, 30 minutes on that maybe, it would have fallen. Okay? Doesn't matter, it's going to rise again. Okay? It doesn't. If you look in the tomorrow morning, you go, oh my gosh, I can see, you can tell on the sides of the bowl. You can go, oh, I see where it came to. It's not there anymore. You know, there'll be you'll be able to tell. And if that happens, it will rise again. You know, don't panic, just pretend, because when you pull it out of that, when I pull that out, did y'all see me kind of press it down a little bit? You're kind of deflating it a little bit because you want it to rise again. You want that strongness. If you push it down, those air bubbles are kind of breaking in two, and then they're going to rise again. So instead of having one great big air bubble, you've got 2 or 3 littler air bubbles, which is stronger than one great big one. So press it down a little bit. Anyway, if it hadn't fallen, then you're going to make it fall a little bit. Don't get too rough with it. It is bread, you know. One thing we didn't do tonight, we didn't have to because I personally measured everything in those bags, is, and I told y'all, when I'm making bread, I always pinch some and taste it to make sure I remember the salt. Because when you're using the other kind of yeast, the active yeast, you can't add the salt till the very end or it'll screw it up. So I always taste my bread. But I do this no matter what kind of yeast I'm using. Like, did I forget something? I'll taste it and go, that doesn't taste right. Well, there's not very many ingredients. You know, you couldn't have left out the flour or the water, obviously, you know. So you either left out the sugar or the salt. You know you put the yeast in. So I always taste my bread just to make sure that I've got, that I didn't leave something out. Because I don't want to get to the end and say, I have left salt out. If you leave salt out, salt arrests the spread of the yeast. It makes it stop, which is a good thing, because otherwise it's going to blow up like a balloon. So if you leave the salt out of your bread, it rises beautifully and rises and rises and rises and rises and falls. It's like, you know, it's not a pretty picture.
Which is flatbread.
Flatbread. Now we know the secret. The kind that we've been using in all of y'all's classes is instant dry. Instant dry, yeah. At the restaurant, I use active. But the active does have a couple of extra steps with it. And if you ever see a recipe that says, put the yeast in the water and make sure it foams, that they are using active yeast. That is not this yeast. You do not have to do that. It's been done for you and it's a little packaged already state. Well, y'all have just been great. I have thoroughly enjoyed the classes. We'll be back in the fall to do baguette bread if I can figure out how in the world we're going to do it.